I want to know how people would react to it, because I asked people on social media, and I got to tell you, it was surprisingly split for a while.
We just found out a couple seconds ago, but I think it's...
I'm going to say Mike McDaniel is going to be the next Browns head coach.
Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel did work for the Browns as a wide receiver coach a few years back.
I can't speak on what other people feel.
I think there's something there, and I think that there will be a change in how, obviously, he's perceived.
All right, now this is getting sticky business here.
A rookie quarterback just stepped into one of the most ruthless spaces in pro sports. Cameras were set, questions were loaded, and the media walked in ready to stir chaos. They were hunting for friction, looking for a crack, waiting on Shedeur Sanders to say one wrong thing that could shake the Cleveland Browns from the inside. Instead, the room went quiet. Sanders did more than handle the pressure. He controlled it. Without attacking anyone or pointing fingers, he shifted the spotlight onto the deeper issues surrounding the franchise. Clips from that press conference are spreading fast, and league insiders are already calling it one of the most polished media showings they have ever seen from a first-year quarterback. What is getting overlooked is what his restraint quietly exposed. By backing his coaches and refusing to play along, Sanders unintentionally highlighted how unstable this organization really is.
Yeah, but it's those coaches and also it's other coaches also, that all poured into me and that helped me throughout everything. So
the tension, the confusion, the unease sitting inside that locker room all leaked out between the lines, and it was not something the Browns front office wanted out in public. That context matters because Cleveland just made a move that rocked the league. Kevin Stefanski, a two-time Coach of the Year and the man responsible for the franchise's only playoff win since 2000, is out, fired abruptly, before there was even time to process what happened.
So definitely, it take a village. It take a village to grow someone and help you in places that you need help with, and just talking in perspective, just being humans with each other, so it take a village to raise one.
This is not a coach who failed quietly. Stefanski turned a long, struggling franchise into something respectable. He restored belief, gave fans a reason to care again, and proved Cleveland could compete. Now, he is gone, and the timing could not be more complicated for Shedeur Sanders. This is a rookie still learning the speed of the league, still building trust with his receivers, still adjusting to defenses that are faster and smarter than anything he saw in college. A coaching reset at this stage adds pressure that no young quarterback asks for. League sources are already pointing to Mike McDaniel as the leading candidate to take over.
To just make an educated guess, again, this is a guess, this is based on some of my conversations, I think he'll end up being a prime candidate in Cleveland. So we'll see where it goes. But I just know that they've long had a respect for not only his offensive acumen, but his.
McDaniel is known as the offensive mind behind Miami's turnaround, where he helped elevate Tua Tagovailoa from a shaky projection into a legitimate Pro Bowl quarterback. His system thrives on motion, creativity, and constant misdirection. On paper, the fit looks intriguing. McDaniel's approach could unlock parts of Sanders' skill set that Kevin Stefanski's more traditional offense never fully tapped into.
Like I say, moving forward, I'll be prepared. I'll have actual realistic reps versus players and versus other players on other teams and everything. So
the upside is real, even if the path there is anything but smooth. Here's the part the headlines keep skipping over. A coaching change during a quarterback's rookie or second season can wreck development fast. The NFL is already brutal to learn. The pace is extreme. Defensive schemes are layered and deceptive, and the mental load required to make split-second decisions is unlike anything else in sports. Most quarterbacks need years just to adjust, while massive defenders are closing in at full speed. Now add this layer. You spend months locked into one system. You memorize hundreds of plays, learn the language, understand the concepts, and build trust with your position coaches. Slowly, things start clicking. The game feels just a little less chaotic. Then it all resets. A new coach walks in, the playbook changes, the terminology changes, the expectations change, relationships have to be rebuilt from nothing. Everything you worked on suddenly has no value, and you are back at square one while the career clock keeps moving. Some quarterbacks manage to push through that mess. They have the mindset and flexibility to adapt. Others never recover. They get tagged early, bounced from roster to roster, and eventually fade out of the league. That gap usually has less to do with talent and more to do with situations the player cannot control. Cleveland has a long, messy track record with this exact issue. Over the last 20 years, the Browns have cycled through quarterbacks at a rate most teams would not hit in 50. The list is long, and it tells a rough story of stalled growth and missed chances. A few of those players found success once they left and landed in more stable environments. Many never got that opportunity. The trend is hard to ignore. Cleveland drafts a quarterback with promise, then fails to provide consistent coaching, structure, or continuity. And the cycle starts all over again. The quarterback struggles because the environment is built for failure, not growth. The team loses patience, moves on, and restarts the cycle with the next hopeful prospect. This pattern has drained the franchise for decades. Missed playoff runs that should have happened. Division titles that slipped away quietly. Championship windows that closed before they ever had a real chance to open. Now Shedeur Sanders is standing right in the middle of that instability, trying to build a future on ground that will not stop shifting. The coaches who drafted him and believed in his vision are already gone, or potentially on the way out. The system he is learning today could be erased in weeks. His career path is being shaped by decisions made by people who might not even be part of the organization next season. That context matters before revisiting the press conference. Sanders was not just answering routine football questions. He was navigating a pressure zone where one poorly chosen word could damage trust with current coaches, future leadership, teammates, or the front office. What followed showed a level of composure that many veterans with a decade in the league still struggle to master. Before breaking down that moment, it is important to understand who Shedeur Sanders is and why pressure does not rattle him the way it does most rookies. He grew up inside one of the most recognizable families in sports. His father is Shedeur Sanders, known as Prime Time, one of the most electric and scrutinized athletes the professional sports world has ever seen. That upbringing shaped how Shedeur handles attention, criticism, and expectation. For him, spotlight and pressure were not introduced at the NFL level. They were part of his environment long before his first professional snap. A Hall of Famer who dominated both football and baseball at the highest level. A cultural icon whose influence stretched far beyond sports into mainstream fame. Being Shedeur Sanders' son means growing up under a spotlight that never shuts off. That kind of exposure is not occasional. It is constant, and it starts early. From the time Shedeur Sanders was a kid, attention followed him everywhere. Youth football games drew cameras. High school performances were clipped, posted, and debated online. Every college move turned into national discussion. Success was often credited to his father's DNA. Failure was amplified and treated like proof that he could not live up to the name. Most young athletes would crack under that pressure. The comparisons never stop. The whispers that you only get chances because of your last name never fade. There is a non-stop need to prove you belong, that you earned everything, that you are more than a legacy attached to someone else's greatness. Shedeur dealt with all of that long before reaching the NFL, and his situation became even more complicated in college. His father was also his head coach at Jackson State and later at Colorado. Every decision came under fire. Every snap, every play call, every opportunity sparked debate about whether it was deserved or handed to him. The scrutiny was heavy and often unfair. Critics hunted for reasons to discredit him. One bad throw turned into a headline. One loss became evidence that he was overrated. People pushed the idea that he was shielded, protected, or untested, regardless of what the tape showed. Most college quarterbacks get room to grow. They make mistakes in relative quiet, learn, and develop without the entire country watching every move. Shedeur never had that space. He was a national topic from the moment he stepped onto a field. Living with that level of pressure year after year forces a crossroads. It either breaks a player down or hardens them in ways that cannot be taught. That kind of pressure does one of two things. It either cracks you and leaves you shaky when the moment gets heavy, or it sharpens you into someone who can stand tall when the spotlight turns hostile. Shedeur Sanders clearly landed on the second side of that line when you watch how he handles press conferences. There is a calm to him that feels rare for someone this early in his career. He does not rush his answers. He does not bite when questions are clearly designed to stir controversy. He stays measured even when reporters push hard, fishing for sound bites that could turn into headlines. That level of control is not accidental. It comes from repetition, years of dealing with attention that overwhelms most pros, let alone teenagers or college quarterbacks. That constant exposure trained him to slow things down mentally, even when the room feels tense. There's also an advantage Shedeur has that almost no other rookie quarterback can claim. He has direct access to Hall of Fame perspective from someone who has already lived through everything the NFL throws at you. Shedeur Sanders played on the biggest stages, handled nonstop media attention, and navigated locker room politics and organizational messes firsthand. That experience matters. Shedeur learned how narratives form, how they spread, and how quickly they can damage a career if you are careless. That knowledge is always one call away for Shedeur when something goes wrong on the field or off it. He is not limited to feedback from a quarterback's coach or coordinator. He can reach out to someone who operated at the highest level of professional sports for years and understands the long game. When the media tries to corner him with loaded questions, he has a real-life blueprint to lean on. That kind of support is a serious edge. During the press conference, Sanders mentioned that he talks with his father after every game. That steady connection gives him balance while everything around the Browns feels unstable. Most rookies in his position would already be drowning under that weight. The entire coaching staff is being wiped out. The future of the organization is shaky at best. Media pressure is heavy, with reporters hovering nonstop, waiting for cracks to show. Most first-year players would fold under that kind of heat, and no one would blame them. But Shedeur Sanders has lived inside this kind of storm his whole life. The platform is bigger now. The consequences are heavier. Still, the core challenge has not changed. Perform while everyone is watching, judging, and quietly hoping you mess up. Sanders has been preparing for that reality since he was a kid. So when reporters came at him with layered questions and setup scenarios, he was ready. The room was packed. Cameras lined the walls. Everyone knew what kind of answers the media wanted. This is how the business works. Reporters need attention. They need tension. They need moments that can be sliced up, argued over, and pushed across social media all day long. Calm, thoughtful answers do not drive engagement. So the questions were designed to corner him. Early on, one reporter dropped the first real trap. Sanders was asked directly whether he believed he had already shown enough in his starts to prove he is a franchise quarterback not just for Cleveland, but across the league. It is a brutal setup. If Sanders says yes with confidence, critics label him arrogant. Every mistake gets replayed. Every loss becomes evidence that he overrated himself. The narrative flips fast and turns ugly. If he says no or shows doubt, that cuts the other way. Why would the Browns commit long-term to a quarterback who does not believe in his own value? Why would a new head coach want to build an offense around someone who cannot stand on his own resume? Either direction feeds controversy. That is the point. The question was never about getting an honest evaluation. It was designed to force a headline no matter what. A classic lose-lose situation built to generate content, not clarity. Sanders found a third path that most people did not see coming.
Shedeur, do you think you did enough to show everybody, or I guess show Andrew Berry that you should be the starter heading into 2026?
I think I did what I was able to do, and I definitely grew from a lot of things, and I got experience now, so I'm always the same, like confidence-wise. I'm there, but like that's not in my hands. Like that's not my decisions. I can't speak on what other people feel.
He explained that he cannot worry about how others judge him or evaluate his ability. He acknowledged that opposing teams respect his passing skill, then followed it with a key point. He said he is not responsible for what other people choose to think or decide. That response works on several levels. First, it separates his play on the field from decisions made by executives and coaches. Sanders made it clear his job is preparation and performance. The rest is not in his control. Whether the front office commits to him, trades him, or looks elsewhere is their call, not something he can influence with bold statements at a microphone. Second, he avoided sounding arrogant without showing insecurity. He did not crown himself a franchise quarterback. He also did not question his own ability. Instead, he shifted the focus to effort, discipline, and letting performance speak. That balance is difficult to strike, especially under pressure. Third, he protected himself from future narratives. If things do not work out in Cleveland, there is no clip of him making guarantees that can be thrown back in his face. If he succeeds, the film will tell that story without him needing to predict it in advance. That is a level of media awareness usually seen in seasoned veterans, not first-year players. The reporters, however, were not done. They pushed further, asking about his process and whether Browns coaches had been offering positive feedback behind the scenes. That question carried risk. Sharing too much could expose private conversations. Being overly vague could raise suspicion. Sanders' response stood out. He repeated that everything is handled internally. When a player stresses that point more than once, it often signals sensitive dynamics the organization wants kept private. That kind of language hints at internal tension or disagreement that everyone has agreed to keep quiet. If coaches and players were fully aligned and confident in the direction of the team, there would be no need to keep stressing privacy. Information only gets protected when releasing it could create problems. By sticking to team protocol, Sanders did exactly what he was supposed to do. At the same time, his restraint quietly confirmed that there are conversations worth shielding, discussions that could embarrass the organization, disagreements that could spark media chaos, issues being managed behind closed doors instead of fully resolved. It is clear the Browns gave players specific guidance on what to say and what to avoid. Sanders was disciplined enough to follow it, but the very fact that those instructions existed speaks volumes about the state of the franchise. The room felt tense, and the reporters could sense there was more beneath the surface. They pushed harder, watching closely for any slip that might reveal what is really happening inside the building. Then came the moment nobody expected. One reporter asked the question that fans who have watched Browns games all season have been asking themselves. The question cut straight to the core of the problem and why major changes feel inevitable. The reporter pointed out a pattern that has shown up week after week. No matter who lines up at quarterback for Cleveland, the same frustrating script plays out. The offense opens with 1 or 2 strong drives. The timing looks right. The play calls work. The ball moves. Then it fades. The rest of the game becomes a struggle. Drives stall. Plays lose rhythm. Momentum disappears. Sustained offense never materializes. That inconsistency has defined the season, and hearing it stated so plainly in that room shifted the energy instantly. The question did not accuse. It simply reflected what everyone had already seen, and that made it impossible to ignore. The reporter pointed out what has been happening every single week, no matter who has been under center, and asked Sanders directly what is stopping the offense from becoming consistent. His response landed in a strange space between avoidance and honesty.
Shedeur, obviously you've only been here just 1 year so far, but as this team goes into a coaching search, what do you think the next leader of this team is sort of?
I could just focus on me. I could just focus on what I could do and getting better, and the players and the teammates that we got. When it comes to those grown-up decisions, that's not me.
He said he did not know, and that it was something for others to speculate about. He added that it was not something he needed to focus on. It is important to understand what that moment really meant. Shedeur Sanders absolutely understands what is holding the offense back. He has to. He is the quarterback. He sits in every meeting. He studies every cut of film. He runs every concept in practice and in games. He knows which plays have a chance and which ones do not. He understands protection schemes, route combinations, and play calling patterns. If there is one person in the building with a full view of the offensive issues, it is the quarterback. But that knowledge is not something he is ever going to share publicly. He is not going to question the scheme on camera. He is not going to criticize play calling. He is not going to put coaches on blast when their jobs are already hanging by a thread. He is also not going to create clips that follow him for years and paint him as someone who shifts blame when things fall apart. That kind of honesty in public would destroy trust instantly. Coaches would pull back, teammates would wonder if they are next, and any incoming head coach would hesitate to build around a quarterback with a reputation for airing dirty laundry. So Sanders chose deflection. He shut the door without engaging the details. And in a strange way, that silence may have said more than any criticism ever could. When he claimed he did not know and left it to speculation, it implied the problems are visible enough that explanation is unnecessary. Anyone watching the games can see where things break down. The issues are obvious. There is nothing Sanders could add that is not already sitting on the tape for everyone to see. That is what makes his response so damaging. If he had openly criticized the play calling or the scheme, it would have been framed as one player's opinion, something people could argue or dismiss. By saying the problems are visible to everyone, he quietly confirmed that they are basic and undeniable. That leads to an uncomfortable question. If the flaws are so clear that even a rookie quarterback believes they require no explanation, why were they never corrected? The answer points to something deeper. Some problems cannot be patched with small adjustments. Some are built into the structure itself. Those are the situations that force major changes, not cosmetic ones. That is why Kevin Stefanski and his staff are gone. The inconsistency Sanders declined to explain has been on display all season. A sharp opening drive followed by a quick stall. A scoring moment followed by long stretches of nothing. Flashes of execution buried under extended dysfunction. Fans have seen it every week. Analysts have broken it down repeatedly. Opposing defensive coordinators have identified it and attacked it without hesitation. The real question was whether the front office would finally acknowledge what everyone else already understood and act on it. They did. The staff is being cleared out. New systems and new voices are on the way. Sanders chose not to pile on while his coaches were on their way out. That decision reflects loyalty and professionalism, especially in a league where players often protect themselves first. But his restraint did not hide the truth. His answer confirmed what had been building all season. The problems with this offense go beyond missed throws or blown assignments. They are tied to the overall approach. Everyone inside that building is aware of it. The quarterback knows it. The coaches knew it. The front office knew it. After that press conference, the rest of the league knows it too. And that set the stage for the moment that immediately took over the conversation. Within hours of the press conference ending, one moment revealed more about the current state of the Cleveland Browns than any anonymous report ever could. A reporter asked Shedeur Sanders about Kevin Stefanski. They wanted to know how the locker room truly felt about the head coach, especially with the non-stop noise surrounding his job security and the future of the staff. Sanders opened with what sounded familiar. He said the team does not pay attention to outside talk. He said their respect for Stefanski had not changed since week 1. It was standard locker room language, the kind players use to protect a coach when the seat is getting hot. Then he went somewhere unexpected. Sanders pointed out that a large portion of the roster does not even know if they will be with the team next season. Nearly half the locker room is unsure about its future. That reality changes everything. That level of uncertainty shifts focus. Many players are not locked in on long-term chemistry or building towards something bigger. They are fighting for survival. They are trying to prove they belong, whether in Cleveland or somewhere else. Winning still matters, but security matters more when careers are on the line. Sanders explained that this is why players are not consumed by coaching rumors. They do not have the luxury of worrying about headlines or speculation. Their energy is spent preparing, performing, and protecting their own futures. Media narratives become background noise when livelihoods are at stake. What made the moment stand out was its honesty. NFL players are trained from day one to speak carefully. They learn how to avoid controversy, how to shield the organization, and how to give answers that sound meaningful without revealing anything real. For a rookie to acknowledge that level of instability without attacking anyone or creating chaos was revealing. It pulled the curtain back on a locker room operating under uncertainty, where belief in the future is fragile and focus is divided, even if no one wants to say it outright. Everything in the NFL is built around presenting unity, no matter what is actually happening behind closed doors. Sanders quietly stepped outside that code, not by attacking anyone or calling out decisions, but by acknowledging a reality everyone in that building understands and is expected to keep off the record. The Cleveland Browns locker room is operating under uncertainty. Players do not know if they will still have jobs in a few months. Coaches are already being linked to other opportunities. The front office has clearly lost faith in the current setup and is preparing for major changes. Until those decisions are made, everyone is in survival mode. That is not an environment where young quarterbacks usually grow into long-term answers. It is not where teams overachieve or surprise anyone. It is not how winning cultures are built. When a large portion of the roster is focused on protecting their own future, the entire dynamic shifts. Players start paying closer attention to personal numbers than collective results. They hesitate to take risks that might benefit the team, but hurt their individual evaluations. They play it safe, not because they do not care, but because self-preservation takes over when job security disappears. Sanders' comments revealed that this mindset is already present in Cleveland. The team is not unified around a shared direction because there is no clear direction to rally behind. The future is unstable, and that uncertainty touches every decision made on the field. Everyone inside the organization understands what is coming. Big changes are on the way. For many players, that likely means searching for new opportunities once those changes arrive. How do you build continuity in an environment like this? How do you develop chemistry when half the roster could be gone next season? How do you commit to a system when that system is about to be erased and replaced? You cannot. Right now, the Browns are a team in name only. What exists is a group of individuals trying to put good tape on film while waiting to see what happens next.
Mentally, getting there and preparing everybody, whether it's the connection with the receivers and everybody, to have that type of feeling, to have that it factor, to have those moments to where it could be risky plays, but it's always going to fall in our direction. So it takes a lot of relationships, and that's what I'm happy this offseason I'll be able to build with.
Any sense of unity is surface level, held together by professionalism, not belief. Players are doing their jobs, but they are not building towards something they trust will still exist a year from now. That difference matters, and this is not a new problem for Cleveland. This cycle has been repeating for decades. New coaches come in, new quarterbacks arrive, rosters turn over, the result stays the same: instability, confusion, a failure to create the conditions required for long-term success. Shedeur Sanders did not reveal anything insiders have not whispered for years. He simply said the quiet part out loud in a way that could not be ignored. The Browns have consistently created environments where winning is harder than it needs to be. That is what made his next move so unexpected. Despite the chaos, despite the uncertainty, despite knowing that major changes are coming, Sanders chose to defend Kevin Stefanski, And he did it without leaning on empty, rehearsed talking points. When asked about coaches whose futures were clearly in doubt, Sanders spoke with real emotion about what his time with Stefanski meant for his growth. He expressed gratitude for the opportunity to come to Cleveland and talked about the relationships he built with the coaching staff. He reflected on his progression from a raw rookie on day one to where he stands now. He even mentioned looking back at those early moments and feeling excited about how far he has come. He made it clear that he does not take any of it for granted. That did not feel staged or forced. It felt genuine. In a situation where it would have been easy to detach or protect himself, Sanders showed appreciation for what he gained, even when the results did not match the effort. That says a lot about how he sees the game and the people around him. Sanders also pointed out that communication with the coaching staff has been strong throughout his time in Cleveland. He said he is grateful for the opportunity to be in this position and thankful to be learning the game at this level. That perspective cuts against the dominant media narrative surrounding the team. Most coverage suggests Sanders needs to be pulled out of a bad situation. The storyline frames Kevin Stefanski's offense as too conservative, something that limits Sanders and holds back his ceiling. In that version of events, a coach like Mike McDaniel is cast as the solution, someone who needs to arrive and unlock what Sanders can really be. Sanders is telling a different story. He says he values what Stefanski has taught him. He says his development has been real. He describes the communication and relationships as positive. He chose to defend a coaching staff on the way out, even though it would have been easier to stay neutral or quietly align himself with whatever comes next. That creates a real question. Is the media right in arguing that Sanders needs a new system to reach his potential? Or is Sanders right in saying he is growing under the current staff despite the results? The most honest answer likely sits between those two ideas. Stefanski can be effective at developing quarterbacks while still being the wrong head coach for this specific roster and moment. Those realities do not cancel each other out. Sanders can appreciate what he has learned and still have another level to reach in a different system. Individual growth and team success do not always move together. A quarterback can take meaningful steps forward while the team around him struggles because of issues that go far beyond one position. Even when the situation gives him every reason to protect himself, Sanders does the opposite. That is the kind of foundation franchises look for. Not just arm talent or football IQ, but character that holds steady when everything around it feels unstable. That brings the conversation to what many people are quietly asking. If Mike McDaniel does end up taking over in Cleveland, what does that mean for Shedeur Sanders and his development? McDaniel has earned his reputation as one of the most creative offensive minds in the league. What he accomplished in Miami with Tua Tagovailoa reshaped how people viewed both the quarterback and the offense. When McDaniel arrived, many had already labeled Tagovailoa a disappointment. The former 5th overall pick had struggled early. Critics questioned his arm strength and doubted whether he could make the necessary throws at the professional level. Some argued Miami made a mistake by passing on Justin Herbert. That narrative changed quickly. McDaniel built an offense designed around what Tua does best: quick reads, precise timing, short and intermediate accuracy, heavy motion and misdirection that stressed defenses and simplified decisions. The system carried much of the burden, allowing the quarterback to focus on execution instead of constant improvisation. The results were obvious. Tagovailoa went from a question mark to a Pro Bowl-level quarterback. Miami's offense became one of the most dangerous in football. McDaniel's profile around the league rose just as fast. If that same philosophy comes to Cleveland, it could unlock parts of Shedeur Sanders' game that Kevin Stefanski's more traditional system never fully tapped into. Sanders has already shown he can process quickly and deliver accurate throws. He has demonstrated comfort operating within structure and handling detailed game plans. Those traits align directly with what McDaniel prioritizes. A fast rhythm passing game could reduce the pressure points that often trip up young quarterbacks. It could help Sanders play cleaner, faster, and more confidently while the offense does more of the work around him.
And this is going to be a guy who I said, you want to scheme open run games, he can scheme open the run game. He knows offense very, very well. And again, guys, they think they are way closer than any of you guys think, and myself included.
Instead of holding the ball and waiting on deep routes to develop, a different scheme would give Shedeur Sanders immediate answers. Instead of forcing him to extend plays and create something out of nothing, the design would offer multiple built-in options on every snap. That is a major part of what makes Mike McDaniel's offenses work. Pre-snap motion is another key element. McDaniel uses it as much as anyone in the league. That movement forces defenses to tip their hand before the ball is snapped, giving the quarterback early information. For a young quarterback still sharpening his ability to read NFL coverages, that advantage can speed up development in a real way. There is a downside that cannot be ignored. Sanders has already spent months learning Kevin Stefanski's system. He has absorbed the terminology, learned the concepts, and built timing with his receivers based on specific route combinations. A coaching change wipes much of that away. Learning a new system is not a clean reset. Every call feels unfamiliar. Every concept demands new timing and new trust. It can feel like starting over, except the expectations are higher because you are no longer viewed as inexperienced. Some quarterbacks adapt quickly. They are mentally flexible and able to separate old habits from new instruction. Others struggle. Mixing systems leads to hesitation. Timing breaks down. Confidence stalls when the familiar disappears. There is also the human side. Sanders clearly values the relationships he has built with the current staff. Starting fresh means learning new personalities, new communication styles, and earning trust from coaches who may already have strong opinions about what a quarterback should be. McDaniel could look at Sanders and see a strong fit, or he could prefer bringing in his own quarterback, someone developed entirely within his philosophy. That uncertainty hangs over everything. Sanders is not just waiting to see who the next coach is, he is waiting to see if that coach believes in him at all. The best case is simple. McDaniel recognizes Sanders' skill set and builds the offense around it. The worst case is familiar. Another Cleveland quarterback caught an organizational turnover, never fully given a clean runway. History suggests outcomes like this are shaped less by talent and more by dysfunction, internal politics, and coaching preferences. That is the reality of playing quarterback inside chaos. Careers are often decided by people you have never met based on factors you cannot influence. When Sanders was asked whether ignoring outside noise is something he has learned over time, his response revealed a lot about how he is wired. He explained that attention and pressure have followed him since childhood. This is just another year of it. It does not change how he prepares or how he approaches his job. That perspective matters. For most players, NFL pressure is overwhelming. Millions watching, every throw dissected, every mistake magnified, careers judged weekly. That level of scrutiny breaks people. It creates anxiety. It tightens mechanics. It shortens careers. Sanders appears to respond differently. Pressure does not register as a spike. It is his baseline. The spotlight that rattles most players feels normal to him. That mental trait is extremely valuable for a quarterback, especially in a major market with constant expectations. Players who struggle with pressure tend to shrink in big moments. They overthink. They play tight. Mistakes appear that were never an issue in practice. With Sanders, the external noise does not seem to penetrate his internal process. He stays focused on preparation and execution, regardless of the chaos around him. He also showed strong self-awareness when discussing where he still needs to improve, which is often the clearest sign of long-term growth at the position. Sanders specifically pointed to broken play situations as an area he needs to improve. He described moments where the play is gone, the pocket is closed, and escape is not an option, leaving him responsible for finding a solution with the ball. That level of detail and self-evaluation is rare for a rookie. Most young quarterbacks either avoid naming weaknesses or stick to vague answers that reveal nothing. Sanders did the opposite. He identified the exact situations that separate developing quarterbacks from established veterans.
And moving forward, just focus on, what we can improve, individually for the next head coach.
Broken plays are where sacks pile up, turnovers happen, and promising drives fall apart. The gap between good quarterbacks and great ones often shows up in chaos. When structure disappears, decision-making under pressure becomes everything. Sanders understands that, and he is not deflecting blame. He is not pointing at protection or play design. He is owning the need to improve in those moments. That accountability says a lot about how he approaches his growth. He is not searching for excuses. He is searching for solutions. That mindset matters as much as any physical trait. There is an interesting layer when considering a potential move to Mike McDaniel's system. McDaniel's offense is built to limit broken plays. The quarterback is given fast answers, clear reads, and timing throws that get the ball out before chaos arrives. In that structure, Sanders' current weakness could be minimized rather than exposed. The scheme does much of the work, reducing the need for improvisation. Sanders would be executing within design instead of creating outside of it. Whether that helps or delays long-term development is an open question. Some believe masking weaknesses is smarter than letting them be punished. Others argue those skills must be developed eventually. The difference will come down to how Sanders continues to approach his growth. What stands out is his mental edge, his ability to stay focused, ignore noise, and take responsibility for improvement suggests he has the psychological tools to handle whatever system he ends up in. At the NFL level, everyone is physically gifted. The difference is how players respond when things break down. Everyone at this level has arm strength, athletic ability, and football knowledge. What separates the players who last from the ones who fade out is usually mental. Can you handle failure without spiraling? Can you learn from mistakes and move forward instead of carrying them? Can you function when everything around you feels unstable? Can you shut out distractions and stay locked in on what actually matters? Shedeur Sanders has been answering those questions his entire life. His upbringing put him under pressure long before the NFL ever did. That kind of constant exposure builds a mental toughness no training program can teach. It hardens you early. That may be his most valuable trait as he tries to survive the uncertainty surrounding his current situation. The Cleveland Browns have spent most of this century searching for a franchise quarterback. The history is rough. Draft picks that never panned out. Free agent deals that collapsed. Trades that backfired. The position has been a revolving door for more than 20 years, never slowing down long enough for real stability to take hold. When you look at the investment, it is even worse. High draft capital burned. Massive salary cap money spent. Coaching staffs hired and fired largely based on whether they could fix the quarterback position. None of it has delivered lasting results. Cleveland remains the rare franchise that cannot solve the most important position in sports while other teams lock in their guy and build around him. The Browns keep cycling through options and asking why nothing sticks. Shedeur Sanders might be their best chance in a generation to finally break that pattern. He has the physical tools, he has the pedigree, more importantly, he has the mindset. His self-awareness and maturity suggest he can handle being the face of a franchise in a high-pressure market. If the Browns handle this correctly, they could finally find the long-term stability they have been chasing for decades. If they mishandle it, the fallout could be serious. There is a very real chance Sanders leaves, lands with a more stable organization, and becomes a star somewhere else. That story has played out many times across the league. A young quarterback struggles in chaos, gets a clean reset, and suddenly looks like a different player. If that happens here, it will follow Cleveland for years. Another name added to the list of quarterbacks they failed to develop. Another reminder that structure and stability matter as much as talent. For this to work, a few things have to happen. First, the next head coach must commit fully to Sanders as the franchise quarterback, not as a temporary option, not as someone to evaluate while scanning for replacements. A real commitment to building around him. Second, the organization has to surround him with support, protection up front, reliable receivers, a run game that forces defenses to stay honest. You cannot fairly judge a quarterback who is under constant pressure or throwing to limited options. Third, there has to be patience. Sanders will make mistakes. He will have rough games. He will miss throws and throw interceptions at bad times. That is part of developing a young quarterback. The real test is whether the organization stays steady through those moments or panics and resets everything again. Cleveland's history suggests impatience, quick changes, restarting the cycle, repeating the same errors that have kept them stuck for 2 decades. But maybe this moment signals something different. Maybe the decision to move on from Kevin Stefanski reflects a real desire to change how this franchise operates. And whether that change finally sticks will determine not just Sanders' future, but whether the Browns can ever escape the pattern that has defined them for so long. Maybe a new coaching staff finally brings the structure and stability this organization has lacked for years. Maybe Shedeur Sanders is talented and mentally strong enough to succeed even when things around him feel unstable. That is the real question this press conference raised without ever spelling it out. Without directly answering anything, Sanders showed he can handle the media. He showed he can protect his coaches while quietly revealing deeper organizational issues. He displayed maturity and awareness that point toward legitimate franchise quarterback potential. Now the spotlight shifts to the Browns. Can they stay out of their own way long enough to see what Sanders can become? Can they create an environment where talent is developed instead of burned through? Can they prove they have learned anything from 2 decades of missteps? The answer will decide whether Sanders becomes another example of wasted potential or the quarterback who finally brought stability to a franchise that has been desperate for it. Everything we have seen suggests he has the tools to be special. Whether he gets the chance to show it in Cleveland is entirely up to the organization. What stood out about that press conference was not one quote or headline. It was what Sanders revealed without ever stating it outright. A rookie quarterback walked into a room full of reporters hunting for controversy and left without giving them the chaos they wanted. He defended his coaches while exposing dysfunction. He stayed composed while describing uncertainty and fear inside the building. In that moment, he showed more steadiness than the franchise around him. The Browns are in transition. Half the roster is unsure about its future. The coaching staff is being replaced. The direction of the team is unclear. And in the middle of all of that, a first-year player carried himself like someone who has been doing this for a decade. The question is no longer whether Sanders belongs at this level. His talent and approach suggest that he does. The real question is whether Cleveland can finally provide the environment needed for that talent to turn into something lasting. History points one way, hope points another. Maybe this time is different. Maybe Sanders is different. What that press conference showed was a glimpse of the quarterback Cleveland has been searching for, even if they are not yet ready to fully support him. Only time will provide the final answer. This entire saga comes down to one uncomfortable truth. Shedeur Sanders has already proven he can handle everything the NFL throws at him except one thing he cannot control: the organization around him. He has shown composure when chaos surrounds him. He has shown restraint when criticism would have been easy. He has shown maturity in moments where most rookies would crumble. What he has not been given yet is clarity, stability, or a clear vision for the future. That is the real test ahead. Not whether Sanders can read defenses or make throws on Sundays, but whether the Cleveland Browns can finally stop repeating the same mistakes that have defined them for decades. Talent has never been their biggest issue. Structure has. If this franchise gets it right, Sanders could be the quarterback who changes everything. If they get it wrong, he risks becoming another name on a long list of what could have been. The margin between those two outcomes has nothing to do with his work ethic and everything to do with decisions made above him. Stories like this do not end overnight. They unfold slowly, quietly, and often painfully. If you want to stay ahead of what happens next with Sanders, the Browns, and the rest of the league, Huddle Files breaks it all down without the noise, the spin, or the recycled takes. That is where the real story continues. And you already know, we'll have every second of it broken down, every twist, every leak, every hidden play behind the headlines. So like, subscribe, drop a comment, and share it out. Stay locked in with Huddle Files, where the real NFL stories live.